Good evening, and welcome to Sleepy Night Channel. Tonight, we explore the moon, with the soft glow that has guided travelers for millennia and the silent, dusty plains waiting in the eternal dark. You can simply listen and let your mind rest. You'll hear gentle ambience and soft bell chimes throughout, never loud, never sudden. If you'd like more calm bedtime episodes, you can like, subscribe, or leave a short comment below. It helps this channel reach others who need something quiet at night. Now, let's begin. We begin by creating a quiet space around us. We gently turn away from the lights of the house. The screens go dark, and the distractions of the day are placed on a shelf. We are preparing for a journey upwards. Leaving the ground behind, we float gently up through the ceiling. Up past the rooftops and the trees. The city below becomes a grid of soft amber lights, fading as we rise. We pass through the layer of clouds. They look like a sea of grey wool, sleeping beneath us. The air grows thinner and clearer. The blue of the sky deepens into indigo, and then into a rich, star-filled black. We have left the atmosphere. We are drifting in the vast, silent ocean of space. There is no wind here to push us. Just a smooth, effortless glide towards the silver orb hanging in the distance. It grows larger as we approach. At first, it is just a familiar disk, the face we have seen 1,000 times. But as we get closer, it becomes a world. A massive sphere of grey stone suspended in the void. We can see the texture of the surface now. The rugged highlands that catch the light. The dark, smooth seas that swallow it. It is a landscape of stark contrasts, painted in monochrome. We prepare to land. We descend slowly towards a wide, flat plain. The ground rushes up to meet us, but we touch down as lightly as a feather. There is no sound of impact. There is no dust cloud billowing up in the wind, because there is no wind. We are standing on the surface of the moon. Our feet are planted on another world. The silence here is absolute. It is not the quiet of a library or a forest. It is a vacuum silence. Sound requires air to travel, and here there is no air. If a giant meteor were to crash into a mountain a mile away, we would feel the vibration in our boots. But we would hear nothing. It is a peaceful, heavy silence that presses against the ears. A silence that has reigned here for billions of years. We look up at the sky. Even though the sun is shining on the landscape around us, the sky is pitch black. Without an atmosphere to scatter the light, the stars are visible even during the day. They do not twinkle. They are steady, piercing points of diamond light. And there, hanging high above the horizon, is Earth. It looks 4 times larger than the moon does from home. A brilliant marble of blue and white swirling in the dark. It is the only thing in the sky that changes. Everything else is fixed and eternal. We take our first step. we feel lighter instantly. Gravity here is only 1/6 of what we are used to. The heavy chains of Earth's pull have been loosened. We do not walk so much as we bounce. A slow motion glide with every stride. It feels dreamlike, effortless, like being underwater, but without the resistance of the water. Your body feels unburdened. We look around at the horizon. It feels closer than it does on Earth. Because the moon is smaller, the ground curves away more sharply. The horizon is only a mile or two away. It creates a sense of intimacy. You are in a small, private bubble of visibility. Everything beyond that curve is hidden, waiting to be discovered. The line between the grey ground and the black sky is razor sharp. There is no haze to soften it. The light here is different too. On Earth, shadows are soft because the air scatters sunlight into them. Here, the shadows are absolute black. If you step behind a rock, you disappear into the void. The landscape is a mosaic of brilliant white highlights and ink-black darkness. It is stark and beautiful, like a black and white photograph brought to life. Nothing moves. There are no clouds drifting by, no grass waving, just the stillness of the stone. We are visitors in a museum of the ancient solar system. Nothing has eroded here. The rocks we see have sat in exactly the same position for aeons. On Earth, wind and rain wash history away. Here, history is preserved forever. A footprint left in the dust today will still be there in 10 million years. Perfectly crisp, unchanged by the passage of time. We are standing in eternity. We lower our gaze from the horizon to the ground beneath our boots. At first glance, it looks like simple dry cement powder or grey sand. But this is not sand, and it is not soil in the way we know it. It is called regolith, a blanket of loose dust and broken rock that covers the entire moon. On Earth, sand is created by the ocean and the wind, which tumble rocks against each other for millions of years until they are round and smooth. But here, there is no wind and there is no water. Nothing has ever been smoothed down. Every single grain of dust here is jagged, sharp, and hooked like a tiny piece of broken glass. We kneel down slowly in the low gravity to look closer at this alien carpet. The layer of dust is deep, ranging from 10 to 50 feet thick in some places. It is the wreckage of billions of years of cosmic bombardment. Large meteors broke the bedrock into boulders, and smaller meteors smashed the boulders into stones. Then, for eons, tiny micrometeoroids no bigger than grains of sand have hammered the surface like rain. They strike the ground at incredibly high speeds, melting the rock instantly upon impact. This constant gardening turns the stone into a fine, charcoal grey powder mixed with tiny beads of glass. We reach out a gloved hand to touch the surface. The dust is incredibly cohesive. It wants to stick together. Because there is no atmosphere to protect it, the dust is constantly bombarded by solar radiation. This charges the particles with static electricity. The dust clings to everything it touches. It coats our boots in a layer of grey. It climbs up the legs of our spacesuits. It is a clingy, abrasive powder that finds its way into every crease and mechanical joint. The astronauts who walked here found that they could not brush it off. It was too stubborn. There is a strange smell associated with this dust, though we cannot smell it through our helmets right now. When the Apollo astronauts returned to their landing craft and took off their helmets, the cabin was filled with a distinct scent. They described it as smelling like spent gunpowder or wet ashes from a fireplace. It is the smell of activated minerals reacting with oxygen for the first time in history. It is the scent of a dead world briefly coming to life. We stand up and look at the colors of the plane. From Earth, the moon looks purely black and white, but standing here, we can see subtle variations. The ground is not a uniform grey. It shifts in tone depending on the minerals under our feet. Some areas have a slight brownish, earthy tint, hinting at iron in the soil. Other areas, particularly the dark seas or Maria, have a very faint bluish hue. This blue comes from titanium trapped in the ancient basaltic lava flows. It is a monochrome world, but it has its own subtle and quiet palette. Scattered across the regolith are rocks of every shape and size. They do not line piles or riverbeds. They sit alone, dropped randomly by distant impacts. Some are small pebbles, while others are house-sized boulders. We approach a medium-sized rock to examine it. It is not weathered or rounded. It is covered in tiny pits, little dots where microscopic particles have struck it over the millennia. These represent zap pits, tiny craters on the rock itself. The rock sits in a small depression of dust, undisturbed for perhaps 1 million years. It is a sculpture of patience. The ground beneath us is also a landscape of craters. They are fractal in nature. The pattern repeats endlessly at every scale. We see large craters miles wide in the distance. But right at our feet, there are craters the size of a dinner plate. And inside those, craters the size of a coin. Every inch of this surface has been touched and retouched by the universe. The craters are shaped like perfect bowls. Because there is no atmosphere to slow objects down, they hit with maximum energy, exploding outward in a perfect circle. The edges are soft and rolled, smoothed over by the slow rain of dust. We walk carefully around the rim of a small crater. The inside is in shadow. The temperature difference here is extreme and hard to comprehend. The ground in the direct sunlight is baking hot, boiling at over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. But just inches away, in the shadow of the rock, the temperature plunges to hundreds of degrees below zero. There is no air to mix the warmth. You can have 1 foot in the fire and 1 foot in the ice. It is a world of thermal violence wrapped in visual silence. As we walk, we leave a trail behind us. The famous boot prints. The regolith compresses perfectly under our weight. It stamps the shape of the sole into the ground with absolute precision, like a mold. The ridges of the boot are sharp and clear. Because there is no wind to blow the dust away and no rain to wash it smooth, these prints are permanent. They are monuments to our presence. Unless a meteor strikes this exact spot, these footprints will outlast the pyramids of Egypt. They will likely outlast the human species itself. We pause to look at the sparkle on the ground. When the sun hits the regolith at the right angle, the ground seems to glitter. This is the Heiligenschein effect, or the holy glow. It is caused by those billions of tiny glass beads reflecting the sunlight back at us. It makes the dusty, dead ground look like it is covered in morning dew or frost. But it is a dry shimmer, is less than Hasson. 3 hash is greater than a trick of the light and the glass. It reminds us that even this grey garden has its own kind of magic. We stand still in the middle of this vast grey plain. The feeling of isolation is profound, but it is not scary. It is a clean, uncluttered feeling. The visual noise of earth, the trees, the cars, the buildings is all gone. There is only the rock, the dust, and the black sky. It quiets the mind because there is nothing here to process. Just simple, geometric shapes and the slow drift of our own breathing. We are alone with the stone. We leave the rugged, cratered highlands behind us and walk down a gentle slope. Ahead of us lies a change in the landscape so vast that it is hard to comprehend. We are stepping onto one of the great dark patches of the moon. The early astronomers looked up at these smooth, dark shapes and thought they were filled with water. They gave them romantic names that sounded like dreams. The Sea of Tranquility, the Sea of Serenity, the Sea of Rains. But as we walk out onto this plain, we realize there is no water here. There is not a single drop of moisture in this Sea of Rains. Instead, we are standing on a monumental ocean of solid rock. This is a world of basalt. Billions of years ago, the moon was young and its heart was hot and molten. When massive asteroids struck the surface, they cracked the crust open. Deep from the interior, great floods of liquid lava rose up to fill the wounds. It was a firestorm that covered millions of square miles. But over time, the fire cooled. The liquid rock settled, smoothed out, and froze into place. Today, we are walking on the surface of that frozen lake. It is a perfect record of a calm moment that happened 3 billion years ago. The ground here feels different beneath our feet. The dust is darker, richer, and heavier. It contains more iron and magnesium than the grey highlands we came from. This darker color absorbs more sunlight, making the ground look like a deep charcoal velvet stretching to the horizon. Because it is so flat, walking here is easier. It feels like walking on a paved highway that has been dusted with powder. We can glide forward with long, loping strides, covering great distances without effort. There are fewer obstacles here, fewer boulders to navigate. Just an endless open expanse of dark calm. The flatness of the Maria creates a strange visual trick. On Earth, our eyes use trees, buildings, or mountains to judge distance. Here, on this featureless plain, there is no sense of scale. A boulder in the distance might be the size of a car, or it might be the size of a house. Without walking up to it, we simply cannot tell. The horizon looks deceptively close, yet we can walk for hours and it never seems to change. It creates a feeling of being suspended in a void. A peaceful disorientation where the only direction that matters is forward. We are small dots moving across a giant canvas of stone. As we move deeper into the Sea of Tranquility, we notice winding channels carved into the flat surface. These are the sinuous rills. They look like riverbeds that have dried up in the sun. They wind and snake across the landscape with beautiful organic curves. But water never flowed here. These were once immense tubes of flowing lava, underground tunnels of fire. When the lava drained away, the roof of the tunnel collapsed, leaving this long, winding canyon behind. We stand at the edge of one and look down. It is a shadow valley, a scar that tells the story of the moon's active past. Now, it is just another quiet place for the shadows to rest. We stop to look back at the Earth hanging in the sky. From this dark plane, the Earth looks even brighter. It is the Earthlight that illuminates our path. Even when the sun goes down on the moon, it never gets truly pitch black if the Earth is full. The light, reflecting off our home planet, is strong enough to cast shadows here. It bathes the dark basalt in a soft, ghostly blue glow. It is a comforting nightlight in this vast, empty room. We can see the clouds swirling over the Pacific Ocean. We can see the brown of the continents. It looks so alive compared to the stillness around us. These dark seas are what make the man in the moon. When we look up from Earth, our brains try to find patterns in the light and dark patches. We see a face, or a rabbit, or a dragon. But standing here, the pattern dissolves. There is no face. There is only geology. There are only vast plains of cooled lava that have sat undisturbed for eons. The eyes of the man in the moon are just giant basins filled with rock. The mouth is just a shadow. But losing the myth does not make it less beautiful. The reality of this silent world is far more majestic than any story we invented. The silence here feels deeper than in the highlands. Perhaps it is the color of the ground, or the lack of craters to break up the view. It feels like a place of deep meditation. The moon is tidally locked to the Earth, which means it rotates at exactly the same speed that it orbits. It keeps the same face pointed at us forever. These seas are always watching Earth. They are the loyal guardians that never turn away. There is a sense of eternal patience in that gaze, holding its position, holding the connection between the two worlds. We sit down on a flat slab of basalt. The rock is cold and hard, but stable. We let our eyes drift over the flat horizon. There is nothing to count here. No trees to number, no waves to time. Just a single, unified expanse of existence. It invites the mind to stop thinking. It invites the thoughts to settle down, just like the lava settled down billions of years ago. To become smooth. To become solid. To become still. We lift off gently from the smooth basalt plains of the dark seas. We glide low over the surface, heading towards the eastern edge of the moon. As we cross the terminator line, the boundary between day and night, we enter a realm that no human eye saw until the space age. We are approaching the far side. Often called the dark side, this is a misleading name, for it receives just as much sunlight as the front. It is only dark to us because we never see it. The moon is locked in a gravitational dance that keeps one face turned away from Earth forever, hiding its back like a shy dancer. As we round the curve, the Earth sinks lower and lower behind us. Finally, it slips below the horizon and disappears completely. For the first time in our journey, we are truly alone. The bright blue marble that has watched over us is gone, blocked by thousands of miles of rock. This creates a unique kind of solitude. Here, you are cut off from every voice, every signal, and every picture from home. It is the only place in the solar system where the Earth is totally invisible. The landscape below us changes dramatically. The smooth, dark lakes we walked on earlier are almost entirely missing here. Instead, the ground is a chaotic, rugged wilderness of white highlands. It looks beaten and bruised, covered in so many craters that they overlap each other like footprints in a crowded room. There is no flat place to rest the eye. It is a jagged ocean of peaks and valleys, stretching endlessly in every direction. Scientists believe the crust is thicker on this side, which prevented the lava from bubbling up to form the smooth seas we know so well. We land in the center of a massive ancient basin. The silence here has a different quality. It is a radio-quiet silence. On the near side, the moon is bombarded by the constant radio chatter of Earth, our TV broadcasts, our radar, our communications. But here, the mass of the moon acts as a giant shield. It blocks all the electronic noise of humanity. This is the quietest place in the neighborhood of the sun. If you had a radio receiver here, it would pick up nothing but the gentle hiss of the universe itself. The static of the Big Bang whispering from the beginning of time. We walk towards the rim of a crater named Daedalus. The walls rise up steep and sharp against the stars. Because there is no weather to wear them down, the mountains of the moon look different from mountains on Earth. They do not have majestic snow-capped peaks or rolling green foothills. They are piles of rubble, massive mounds of grey debris pushed up by explosions. They look raw and industrial, like the spoiled tips of a giant mine. Yet in their stillness, they have a solemn dignity. The shadows here seem longer and deeper. Without the earthlight to soften them, the night on the far side is absolute. When the sun goes down here, you are plunged into a darkness so thick it feels physical. You are standing on the deck of a spaceship looking out into the void with no anchor to hold you to the known world. It is a frightening thought, but also a liberating one. To be so completely hidden is a rare form of privacy, a secret kept by the cosmos. We look down at the ground again. Even here, on the hidden side, the dust is churned and patterned. We see bright rays of white material stretching out from fresh craters. These ejector rays look like splashes of white paint thrown across a grey canvas. They tell us that even though this side sleeps, it is not dead. It is still collecting history. Every scar is a memory of an event that happened millions of years ago, preserved in perfect clarity. We find a flat rock and sit, facing away from where Earth would be. We look out into the deep field of stars. Without the glare of our home planet, the Milky Way is brighter here than anywhere else. It looks like a storm cloud made of light. You can see the colors of the stars, orange, blue, and gold, burning steadily in the vacuum. It reminds us that the moon is just a stepping stone, a small island off the coast of a much larger continent. Sitting here, in the shadow of the moon, we feel the true scale of the galaxy wrapping around us. We leave the rugged wilderness of the far side and turn our attention to the bottom of the world. We are approaching the lunar South Pole, a region that is dramatically different from the equator. Here, the sun does not rise high in the sky and then set. Because the moon stands almost perfectly upright with very little tilt, the sun simply skims along the horizon. It circles around us, casting shadows that are 50 miles long. This low angle of light creates a landscape of extreme contrast, where the difference between light and dark is absolute. It is a place of eternal twilight, caught forever in the golden hour of dawn. We stand on the rim of a massive crater named Shackleton. The rim towers above us, bathed in constant, brilliant sunlight. These high points are called the peaks of eternal light. Because of their height and location, the sun never sets on them. They have been warm and illuminated for billions of years, acting as beacons in the grey landscape. Standing here, you would never see nightfall. You would simply watch the stars rotate overhead while the ground remains washed in gold. But we look down, over the edge of the cliff, into the bottom of the crater. Down there, the floor is plunged into permanent shadow. The sun is too low to ever peek over the rim. This means the bottom of this crater hasn't seen a single photon of sunlight in 2 billion years. It is one of the darkest places in the universe. It is a cold trap, a natural refrigerator that preserves everything that falls into it. The darkness is so complete that looking into it feels like looking into a deep, velvet well. We descend slowly into the shadow. As soon as we cross the line from light to dark, the temperature plummets. We are entering a realm deeper than freezing. It is nearly 400 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. This is colder than the surface of Pluto. It is colder than the empty space between the stars. In this extreme cold, the atoms themselves seem to slow down and almost stop vibrating. It is a stillness that goes down to the molecular level. We turn on our lights to see what is hiding in the dark. The ground sparkles, but not with rock. We are looking at water ice. This is not a smooth skating rink like a frozen lake on Earth. It is dirty ice, billions of tiny crystals mixed in with the grey regolith. It looks like soil that has been frosted over by a hard winter. This water was delivered by comets that crashed into the moon eons ago. On the rest of the moon, the water evaporated instantly into space. But here, in the cold trap, it was captured and frozen instantly. It has remained here, unchanged and untouched, since the time dinosaurs walked the Earth. This ice is hard as granite. At these temperatures, water ceases to act like a liquid and acts like a mineral. If you tried to chip it with a pickaxe, the metal would likely ring or shatter. It is a fossil of the early solar system. Trapped in the dark, safe from the sun, safe from the vacuum. It is a sleeping resource, waiting patiently in the dark. We realize that the driest desert we saw earlier actually hides an ocean in its shadows. The silence in the crater is heavy. Because there is no thermal expansion or contraction here, the rocks do not crack or shift. The moonquakes that happen elsewhere are dampened here by the deep freeze. It is a place of absolute stability. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. Nothing degrades. If you dropped a feather here, it would lie exactly where it fell for eternity. It is the ultimate archive of history. We look back up towards the rim of the crater. We can see the sliver of the sunlit peaks glowing high above us like a halo. The contrast is breathtaking. Above, infinite light and warmth. Below, infinite darkness and cold. Two worlds existing side by side, separated by just a few miles of rock. It reminds us of the balance of the cosmos. Energy and entropy. Motion and rest. Dancing together in silence. We stand in the cold for a moment longer, respecting the stillness. The cold feels protective here, like a vault. It keeps secrets safe. It stops the clock. In a universe that is always rushing forward, this crater is a pause button. A place where time waits for us. We feel our own internal clock slowing down to match it. The beat of our heart seems to echo the slow, frozen rhythm of the ice. We leave the freezing shadows of the poles and drift back towards the equator, towards the sunlit plains of the near side. Scattered across this vast grey landscape are tiny islands of metal and gold. These are the resting places of the machines that came from Earth. We approach one of these sites slowly, drifting like a ghost over the regolith. It sits in the middle of a flat, basaltic plain, undisturbed for over half a century. It is the descent stage of a lunar module. It looks like a strange, geometric insect made of foil and aluminum. Its forelegs are planted firmly in the dust, wrapped in gold insulation that still gleams brightly in the sun. There is no rust here. There is no wind to tear the foil, and no rain to corrode the metal. It looks exactly as it did the moment the astronauts climbed the ladder and blasted off, leaving it behind as a monument to their departure. Around the base of the machine, the ground is a chaotic map of footprints. We can see the tracks where they walked to set up the flag. We can see the path where they dragged their tools. The boot prints are sharp and deep, the tread patterns perfectly preserved. They look fresh, as if they were made just 5 minutes ago. But looking closely, we see that the flag they planted has changed. The nylon fabric has been bleached completely white by decades of harsh ultraviolet light. It is no longer a flag of a nation. It has become a flag of surrender to the sun. A white square standing stiffly on its wire frame, saluting the silence. A little further away, we find a lunar rover. It is parked casually, as if the driver just stepped out for a break. Its wheels are made of wire mesh, designed to grip the soft dust without sinking. The fenders are dusty, coated in the same grey powder that covers the hills. The high-gain antenna points back towards Earth, forever waiting for a signal that will never come. The seats look like lawn chairs, simple and functional, sitting empty in the vacuum. There is something incredibly peaceful about this abandoned car. It is not a wreck. It is a display piece in the quietest gallery in the universe, waiting for visitors who may not come for another 1,000 years. We move to another site, miles away, where a different kind of visitor sits. This one has no seats and no windows. It is a robotic surveyor, a Soviet lunarcod. It looks like a bathtub on 8 wheels, with a round lid open to the sky. It has been sleeping here since the 1970s. Its solar panels are covered in a fine layer of dust, but underneath, the machinery is intact. It drove for miles across the Mare Imbrium, controlled by men sitting in a room in Russia. Now, it is just another rock among the rocks. A metal tortoise that has gone into eternal hibernation. Among these large machines, there are smaller, simpler objects. We find a panel of mirrors sitting on the ground. This is a laser-ranging retroreflector. It is about the size of a suitcase, filled with corner cube prisms. It is the only experiment from the Apollo era that is still working today. Every night, scientists on Earth shoot a laser beam at this exact spot. The mirrors catch the light, and bounce it straight back to the observatory. By timing how long the journey takes, they can measure the distance to the moon down to the millimeter. It is a heartbeat of light, connecting the two worlds. Pulse, return, pulse, return. A silent conversation that continues while the world sleeps. We realize that these sites are time capsules. On Earth, our history is buried by new cities, or washed away by floods, or overgrown by forests. Nature reclaims everything. But here, there is no nature to take it back. The moon is a faithful keeper of memories. The hammer that was dropped, the golf ball that was hit, the family photo that was left on the regolith. They are all safe here. They are held in a state of suspended animation. The moon protects them with its stillness. It treats a discarded camera lens with the same respect it treats a billion-year-old crater. We float above the landing site, looking down at the pattern of activity frozen in the dust. It feels less like an abandonment and more like a pause. As if the scene has been paused on a video player. The stillness is heavy and profound. It invites us to pause too, to stop our own internal motion, to become as still as the gold foil on the lander, to let the dust settle in our own minds, standing watch over the silent history of the moon. We lift off from the dusty surface one last time, drifting upwards into the silence of space. We float in the void between the two worlds, looking at the invisible connection that binds them together. The moon is not just a rock floating aimlessly in the dark. It is held on a tight leash by the Earth. But the moon pulls back with a gravity of its own, an invisible hand reaching out across 250,000 miles. It is a heavy, silent embrace that has lasted for 4.5 billion years. They are dancing partners, spinning around a common center, locked in a rhythm that neither can break. We look down at the blue oceans of Earth. From this distance, we can see the effect of the moon's touch. As the moon orbits, it drags the water of the oceans with it, creating a bulge that travels across the planet. This is the tide. It is the breathing of the world. Inhale, and the tide comes in, filling the bays and lifting the ships. Exhale, and the tide goes out, revealing the sand and the secrets of the shore. It is a slow, deep respiration that happens twice a day, every day, without fail. It is a clock made of water, ticking slowly in time with the orbit. This movement of water is powerful, but it is also gentle. It creates friction against the ocean floor, a massive global resistance. This friction is actually acting as a brake on the Earth's rotation. Very slowly, the moon is forcing the Earth to slow down. Billions of years ago, a day on Earth was only 6 hours long. Everything was spinning frantically fast, is less than Hasson. 5 is greater than, but the moon has calmed us down. It has stretched our day into 24 hours. It is still doing it now, lengthening the day by a tiny fraction of a second every century. The moon is a gift of time, giving us longer nights to rest. While the Earth slows down, the Moon is slowly drifting away. It is stealing energy from the Earth's spin to push itself into a wider orbit. Every year, the Moon moves about 1.5 inches further away from us. It is a retreat so slow that it is invisible to the human eye, yet it is measurable and real. It is a long, slow goodbye that will take billions of years to complete. But for now, it is still close enough to light our way. It hangs in the sky like a lantern, watching over the sleeping planet with a steady gaze. This gravitational bond creates a sense of stability. Without the Moon, the Earth would wobble chaotically on its axis. The climate would swing wildly from hot to cold, and the seasons would be unpredictable. The Moon acts as a stabilizer, a heavy anchor that keeps the Earth tilted at the perfect angle. It creates the rhythm of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. It is the reason we have a predictable pattern of life. It is the silent guardian of our seasons, holding the world steady so that life can flourish. We feel this pull in our own bodies. We are made mostly of water, just like the oceans. While the tidal force on a human is tiny, we are still part of this great cosmic system. We live in the rhythm of the orbit. The word month comes from the word moon. Our calendars, our festivals, and our nights are defined by the waxing and waning of this silver sphere. It is woven into the fabric of our time. When we look up at it, we are looking at the metronome of our history. The light from the Moon is soft and reflected. It is sunlight that has been filtered, bounced off the grey dust, and sent back to us. It is cooler than sunlight. It does not demand action. It invites reflection. Under the moonlight, the world loses its sharp edges and its bright colors. Everything becomes silver and shadow. It is a light made for sleeping. A light that tells the brain it is time to wind down and let go of the day. We float further back until the Moon and the Earth are both in view. Two spheres floating in the endless velvet dark. They look peaceful together, connected by invisible threads of gravity and time. The tension between them is perfectly balanced. Not too close, not too far. Just a gentle, eternal swinging motion, rocking the cradle of the night. The journey across the grey world is finished. We have walked the dusty plains, stood in the frozen shadows, and watched the Earth hang in the ink-black sky. Now, the visual details begin to fade away. The sharp edges of the craters soften into a blur. The contrast between the bright white highlands and the dark seas melts into a single soothing shade of silver. The Moon is no longer a place of geology and science. It is returning to what it has always been for us. A quiet, glowing presence in the night. A nightlight that never burns out. We feel the gravity of the Earth pulling us gently back home. Not with speed, but with a slow, comfortable drift. We leave the vacuum silence behind and return to the soft atmosphere of sleep. The heavy stillness of the lunar rock settles into your own bones. You feel solid. You feel grounded. Just as the moon is anchored in its orbit, you are anchored in your bed, held safely in place by the weight of the blankets. The light of the moon is a cool light. It does not ask you to wake up. It does not ask you to work or to think. It only asks you to rest. It washes over the world, turning the busy colors of the day into a peaceful monochrome. Under this light, the mind can finally stop spinning. The thoughts that have orbited your head all day begin to slow down. They drift further and further away, disappearing into the dark. Imagine the moon floating in the silence of space right now. It is perfectly still. There is no wind blowing across its surface. There is no noise disturbing its peace. It is simply existing. Huge, heavy, and calm. It has been there for billions of years, and it will be there for billions more. That permanence is a comfort. It means you do not need to worry about tomorrow. The universe is holding everything together for you. Your breathing syncs with the slow rhythm of the tides. A long, deep inhale, filling the chest with quiet air. And a long, slow exhale, letting go of all the tension. In and out. Rising and falling. Like the ocean moving under the pull of gravity. There is no effort in this breathing. It happens on its own, automatic and steady. The darkness of the room feels friendly now. It is not an empty darkness. It is a velvet wrapping, soft and protective. You are floating in your own private capsule, drifting through the peaceful hours of the night. The destination is deep sleep, and you are almost there. You do not need to look at the sky to know the moon is there. You can feel its presence watching over the roof. A silent guardian that keeps the night safe. It is a companion for the sleeping world, sharing the silence with you. Everything is slow now. The dust has settled. The footsteps have faded. The history book is closed. There is nothing left to explore. There is nothing left to do. Just drifting deeper into the warmth, sinking down into the soft support of the mattress, letting the heaviness take over completely. Safe, quiet, asleep. If you are still awake, you can subscribe to Sleepy Night channel for more calm night journeys like this. That was 100 calm facts about the moon. Now the sound will continue for a while so you can fall asleep. Good night.